Okay, so thanks. I'm going to talk about Ouranos Experience Part 1. My colleague Isabelle Charon is going to talk about Part 2 tomorrow. And I'm going to tell you about our own explaining climate change and climate modeling experience. First, I want to say that if you cannot follow my French pronunciation, I've put a few pictures so you can at least look at the pictures and maybe try to figure out if you want to organize a Chapman conference in a nice, exotic French-speaking country. And the other thing is I just want to clarify what Ouranos means. It's just a Greek divinity. It's the son of Mother Earth, and you can see him as the sky if you want. So you can use that, okay. So back at the end of the 1990s, there were three really important things that happened and that made the Quebec government create Ouranos. And the first two were extreme meteorological events. There was a big ice storm, and when almost 20% of the population went out of electricity. And in January, electricity is really fundamental in Quebec, so it was really important. And then was also one over 100 years precipitation event over the Saguenay Basin that causes a lot of damages. And the third event was not a meteorological one. It was that the small research group, the only research group in regional climatology in Canada, was getting no more funding. And so as the government was ready, they decided to create Ouranos as a joint initiative. So by the government, by Hydro-Québec, which is the hydroelectrical power company, and Environment Canada. And so to provide Quebec, but the rest of Canada, too, with an organization capable of coordinating climate science with the adaptation needs of society. And the approach, which was quite innovative at the time, was to bring together in the same building researchers from many disciplines and different institutions, together with stakeholders and users. Okay? So concretely, what is Ouranos? It's a private non-profit organization. It's a network of some 400 scientists and professionals, but located from day to day in the building where 60 employees and contributed personnel in situ. Contributed personnel are personnel from the members of Ouranos. So there's people from Hydro-Québec, from Environment Canada, but we have also people from the ministry, and often even people from one private company, which is Rio Tinto Alcan, which are all members of Ouranos. Okay? So it's based on it's a hard word, partnership philosophy, and it's located downtown Montreal, so it's easily accessible from people coming from abroad or from other cities. We don't have any public mandates, okay? Our members are our clients, and so in this talk I'm gonna talk about something that has not been so much talked about so far, which is mainly communication from scientists, climate scientists, towards people who are doing impact and adaptation study, and not toward the public. We can do it if we want, like for myself, I'm involved, I'm a member of a scientific circle in the French branch of David Suzuki Foundation, for those who know that organization, but it's not part of my work. So our concerns and issues, you can look at them, there's many of them. And so public safety, infrastructure, energy supply, water resources, which is really important, health and all that, down towards even water management in the Great Lakes St. Lawrence system. So going back at the beginning, what was the structure? We were our small group, so we were coming from university. We were 7 of us, and we're all climate modelers, so physicists with degrees in atmospheric sciences. And so they put us with people who didn't have any climate change background and were supposed to do impact and adaptation studies. And it's okay, now you're going to provide them data and they're going to use it. And it was a total failure, okay, because they didn't know they didn't know anything about climate change. They didn't know anything about models. And in fact, we didn't care if we were still in our own virtual world of climate simulation, and like putting our science back to the ground was not really interesting for us. So it was a complete failure. So after a few years, they put a new group after maybe in 2004, I think. And it was the Climate Scenario and Services Group. And this time it's a success because we are still with the same structure. So you have the climate science on the left. So still climate simulation analysis. So we are still modelers and physicists. We are 9. There's climate scenario services, they're 11, and they're climate specialists. So hydrologists, geographer, biologists, and also physicists. And so they are doing climate scenarios using our climate model, but also using any other climate model that is available. Okay? And so the rest of the 400 network people is the people working in impacts and adaptation. So we have 10 programs, 90 projects, and because all the years have passed now, they're much knowledgeable about climate change. And so in this group, there are people in agronomy, there are urban planners, there's economists, also a lot of hydrologists as well. Okay, so I don't remember why I put this slide, so I'm going to skip it. Okay, so now really focusing on climate simulation and analysis group, here are our 3 mandates. So the first 2 ones are like usual mandates for a regional climate modeling group. Okay, so provide partners with regional climate projection, assess the uncertainty associated with this climate projection, and you can send the right a model, Canadian Regional Climate Model that covering North America, which is the main model we are using. What our third mandate is to offer expertise in climatology and in climate simulation, and also the support required for Ouranos scientists outside our group. And so what do we do to do that? So that leads me to my communication issues. So of course we are writing scientific papers as everybody else do in the same field, but we are also writing internal reports which are less demanding, and sometimes we can put a lot more details in them, so it's more accessible for the people who need really information. And also when we are writing scientific paper, we are trying to do a vulgarization of the results, and we're putting it in a newsletter so the people can see what our research can, how our research can be useful to them, but in more clearer ways. So we are directly involved in some INA projects. So like personally, I'm involved in a dendrochronology project who is studying the climate variability of water resources in northern Quebec. We are advisors on so many other projects, like I was involved in a tourism project. We provide scientific support on request, and sometimes the requests can come very late, so people have to write some reports to end their project in INA, and they want a climate scientist approved seal, and they come at the last minute, and then we find out that they have misused the data, or maybe if we were been involved at the beginning, we could have even made a simulation for their own needs. But usually it's going well. Of course, we have written facts, and beside the way that they're in French, and that there's not so many French information regarding climate change, they are written with the help of INA people. So, meaning that we are written them, but on our revising committee, there's people from INA, so they can check to see if they understand what we mean, and really to be sure that everything is completely understand. And it's much more difficult than it looks to be sure that all climate scientists and all the people from impact and adaptation agree on a definition. Believe me, it's quite hard. The last thing is the training in climate modeling, and I'm doing it. I'm the one doing it. And so what is our training? So in fact, it started in 2005. There was a demand from a teacher in a modeling course from a geography department at a university. And she just sent an email to our chief asking if someone can do a climate modeling training. And I was getting tired of doing my own work sometimes, just to try to get away from the computer. So I was a volunteer, and since that time, I've given that formation to partners, collaborators, institutions, and university. And so the formation is adapted to the public, so sometimes it's really neophytes, sometimes it's very well educated users, because I'm giving it to our own people involved in Ouranos. So it can be from an hour to a full day. I'm giving it in situ, like in Ouranos, or I can go to their places. and we do some publicity as well. So here's the number of training I've done. So it's not so much. I've reached about 600 participants, but if you think about climate change, people involved in Quebec, it's a lot of people. I mean, we're not so many. And so it was quite a success. So what am I? In this training, I can talk about a lot of things. As I said, I'm adapting to the public. I can talk about history of climate change, but it's less popular because it requires too much time, and sometimes people really won't get to the point. Okay? And so I'm introducing climate modeling, which is really essential. As we are a regional climate modeling group for users who are using both types of data, I'm talking about difference and similarities between global and regional models. Talking a lot about uncertainties, and this is really important. You can't avoid this one, but if you have time to talk about it and explain what is internal variability, natural variability, and the difference between intermodal and scenario, a lot of people are able to understand what uncertainty means. Okay. And I'm also talking about application and results, of course, of climate projection, and also just to be sure that people won't be surprised with the next AR5 report. I'm talking about what's new from modeling side from CMIP5. So the pros and the cons. So it's very appreciated by users, and even if they can go on Twitter, on the web, or whatever, they really like to have a real person in front of them answering their questions. Okay? And, the most important thing that it generates a minimum common level of knowledge for people who are doing impact studies. So, and it directs users towards appropriate resources and stimulates new collaboration as well. And so, for us, it connects scientists to users, so it's more put it on the ground, I should say. The cons, it has to be considered in planning of resources, because while I'm doing this, I'm not doing my own research, and we don't have less thing to do in climate simulation. And it requires continuous effort to keep up to date, and requires flexibility and availability to adapt to the needs of the people. And and of course, it does not replace the need for a constant interaction with user, which the climate scenario group is doing. But the main problem is not all those that need it take it. And so it's kind of not a miracle, but maybe the evolution of our communication to other climate change scientists and users. So it's really climate modeler evolution, if I should say. So starting in 2001, how we saw things. Really, we were doing our simulation, and it was really first we managed to do our simulations, then we talk. But of course, there's always more simulation to do. So finally, we never talked with the people. In 2004, there was a creation of climate scenario group. So here are the simulations. So of course, we gave the data, but really do not remove the bias, please. You will destroy the geostrophic balance. And I still believe geostrophic balance is really important, but maybe for the impact user, it's not so useful. Okay? And 2007, we would listen up, see a complaint overheard in a Christmas party. I don't know, tour d'ivoire, every tour, I don't know if it's a word in English, it means that we were alone in our tour. Okay, well, okay. And so, yeah, you know, at Christmas party, people talk a lot. And in 2010, so after 10 years, it's a tribute to Casablanca, if you remember. Anyway, it's the beginning of a beautiful friendship. But it took 10 years, and we were located in the same building, okay? So it's a hard job. And lastly now, okay, Copernican revolution, so we're not the center of the universe anymore. So we accept that we are user-driven activity. But now I think the problem is that maybe the impact and adaptation, people think they are the center of the universe, but that's another problem. And okay, this is over. I just want to thank particularly Ramande Ilya, with whom I've done the last time scale, and it was really kind of funny. Just the website of Ouranos, there's a lot of information there. Many of it is private, like it's for partners only, but there's a lot of public information, and it's bilingual. So that's it.